Evening.
Yes, sir.
My name is Joe McCulloch. I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. I'm here on behalf of the River Hills, Lake Wylie EMS groups, and I am, I guess, what you'd call one of those shiny shoe boys from Columbia. And I'm not going to, some of the folks have spoken and given you their very important perspectives, and so I'm not going to go over that ground. In fact, one of these gentlemen stole my whack-a-mole line, because folks from my office have participated in the negotiation discussion process, and there is no more apt description for what we've observed during this process of discussion. I'd like to think I'm not preaching to a deaf congregation here. I think that, Mr. Chairman, you said at the outset that this group, all of you have sworn to look after the best interests of the people. And certainly this addendum and the contracts underlying it talk about the paramount purpose of this contract being to ensure the health of the people. But what I'm really here to talk about just for a moment are the legalities. But I think it's important, and I hope it's not lost on all of you, especially those of you who are elected, that the room behind me is full of people who are your constituents. And at the outset of this, Mr. Chairman, I think you observed that there weren't any proponents in here, only opponents. And that should speak volumes to you. In fact, it also speaks volumes that there doesn't appear to be anyone here from Piedmont. Maybe they're so confident, maybe they're that arrogant, maybe they're that certain for some reason that we don't understand. But it is, I hope, important and not lost on you. These are the people you represent, not a for-profit hospital. And what you are busy doing with this addendum is forcing upon this community a monopoly, forcing out of business and imposing, as others have said, a 32-year moratorium on the expansion of the volunteers, on the expansion of the ambulance service offered by River Hills and Lake Wylie. Throughout this process that will culminate perhaps in the third reading, but certainly we're near the culmination of a multi-month process when, as Mr. Whack-a-Mole indicated, proposals were made, language drafted, language discussed very favorably, and then it disappears, sinks beneath the waves, and a new provision that defeats the purpose of the last favorably discussed provision surfaces from nowhere. There are rumors of abdication to the hospital, of the drafting and preparation of provisions that uniquely benefit the hospital. There are rumors of these essentially constituting proprietary specs. There certainly are rumors and some observations of really kind of ignoring the requirements of the procurement code. All of those are of concern to lawyers. But what really has to be of concern to you are these folks back here. They're the ones you ultimately have to respond to. And I'm not, as I said, going to go back over things, but I think one thing that is a pretty concise example is the fact that this language can be read, and I think correctly so, as dictating a 32-year moratorium on the ability of River Hills to expand beyond its present one ambulance. Unless, as this addendum says, there is essentially a total failure of the emergency services for a period of 6 months. That is not really in the best interest of this community or the people behind me. As written, there are many people in this community who believe that this contract, this addendum, and this plan to essentially abdicate to a for-profit entity, and you know, we're all business people. Privatization is a lovely thing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. Here you are forcing, you are enforcing essentially a monopolistic moratorium of decades. And I disagree respectfully with Mr. Cox that you're not bound and tied to 32-year contract. There is a contract in place. But as you've demonstrated in this ordinance, a great deal can change pretty facilely, and in fact, it can change from week to week. So there are parts and subparts of this document that can be reevaluated and can be adjusted and can be reduced, not to 35 years, but from that to a more efficient and effective system to ensure the best EMS service, to be all-inclusive of the for-profit and not-for-profit folks, the volunteers, and the others who love this county, who made it, who hauled the dirt to make it, and who are now being judiciously ignored through this process. The law is not tolerant of monopolies. We would like to think that this group, you who have the vote, are equally intolerant of monopolies. The addendum you're about to vote on in a week or so is exactly that. We continue, and I urge you on behalf of all of the people in this room, and the people outside of this room watching this, I don't urge it on behalf of the for-profit hospital, but on behalf of the people who care genuinely about the services that their friends provide, the services that they want, and the services that they deserve, which may not be answered by the addendum that you now propose to pass. We continue to be hopeful, optimistic, and we continue to watch this process very closely. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.